Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Virtual TrekCon 4. My name is Mohamed Noor, and I'm honored to be here today with Mr. Timothy Peel, who is an art director for the Star Trek franchise. He has lots of credits throughout Star Trek Discovery. He's got credits in Short Treks. He's got credits in Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and lots of other great shows we'll hear about. Thank you, Tim, for spending some time with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mohammed.
It's a pleasure to have you here. So let's just dive right in. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your early career and how you got into art and VFX and things like that?
I come from a family of artists. My mother is like a Florentine painter, illustrator, artist, and art teacher and professor of art. So I've been defending my stick drawings since I was 4 years old. My father is an architect, and so is my wife. So I sort of come from a very art was not really an option. It was a way of life. And I grew up in a very designed environment as a kid. Went to succeeding art schools or art-focused high schools since high school. Art-focused schools since high school. And then of course college, and then of course university, and did all those things. It sort of switched and went into film and moving image because it was really interesting. Got very involved in the interactive world and the growth of the internet, in the 90s. But I was also working while I was working some labor jobs, I've done almost every job in the film industry when it comes to production of work, construction, security, visual effects, special effects, blowing up, working on RoboCop, the TV series, blowing up,
wow,
injecting French breadsticks with napalm to blow up and machine gun fire. The paint department, scenic department, costume. Like I've done all the different jobs, all sort of as summer labor or whatever I could do, and all at the same time, sort of working a lot in the internet world and the sort of the new digital era. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of came to this interesting confluence towards the end of the 90s where I decided that I wanted to leave IATSE's union and join the Directors Guild because that's where a lot of the art department stuff was happening. And I felt that I was more creative. I mean, I can definitely do the labor, and there's the people who do all those jobs are just as creative. But when it comes to being a truly aesthetic kind of job, a design focused job, it seemed that going back to university, getting a degree, coming back and working in the art department was where I was probably going to be best used. And I did exactly that. And then even then,
where did you go to university that second time?
Ryerson, I think it's called the Metro University. I can't remember. The university has been renamed recently, and probably rightfully so. It has some questionable characters in the past, and has some renaming going on. So I don't know what my degree is, but I have a degree I have it lying around here somewhere just because I'm packing. of fine arts from Ryerson University. I graduated from the film school program there. But I was really doing a lot of new media at the same time. So I was trying a lot of, this is the early days of HTML Flash programming for the internet and trying to do that kind of thing. And so when I got into the film industry, the art department, I was being asked to do, I went as a graphic designer. Almost like half or 2/3 of motion graphic designers in today's business, modern, usually come out of graphic design. Oh, because that's really the sort of primary ability to tell a story graphically and quickly, and then the animated becomes its own other story. So anyway, they got me to do a lot of the sort of basic, sort of primitive websites in like the late 90s and the early 2000s on some show. I think I did a film called Godsend where we were doing like web lookups. And it was this weird job where I had to remove the interactivity from a website so that an actor could only do what we wanted to see them do. Because most texting and surfing are very much packed with indecision. Mice arrows kind of go around and kind of figure things out. When we text, we have many errors, and we go back and delete and repost things. So what you want to do is sort of actor proof that and do the exact opposite of what I've been training almost for 10 years to do. There's like remove all this interactivity. I want to be able to only click this button, or when I type any key, I want to see only these words come out. So it's an interesting introduction into motion graphics as this weird stripped down reverse engineering of the internet world as it applied to film. And so that's sort of how I got into it. And I mean, I've been kind of indirectly involved with the film industry since like 93, 94, like Mountains of Madness, Johnny Mnemonic, Wow, dating myself out with the Santa Claus. It's really old stuff back in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's great.
yeah, I've been involved for a long, long time, and so, and now, of course, looking at Michael Okuda's extraordinary life and dreaming of what he had, and had no thought that I would end up in a similar position in any way, and no thought. I mean, The Expanse was about as close as I got, and I was like, oh, I've got myself a sci-fi series. It's really cool. And it was interesting to sort of also do sci-fi series because I primarily worked in features for almost the first 15, 20 years of my career. I don't have that many TV credits until later. And so I was used to monstrous budgets and lots of time. Which is quite spoiled, quite arrogant. But to come into TV was like, okay, that's a humbling experience. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Let's talk about some of those specific ones. So, one of the earliest ones I saw on your IMDb listing was the 2004 Dawn of the Dead.
Oh yes, yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah,
so that's one of Zack Snyder's first major feature films. We had Sarah Polley, one of our great directors and actors, one of her first roles, first major sort of big Hollywood roles. And the whole idea was, of course, they're going to do a remake. And we're wondering if he could really touch George Romero's sort of campy masterpiece. And he really did. He knocked it out of the park. I think it's actually one of the better zombie movies ever made, the remake, believe it or not. And I'm tooting our own horn, but the thing that was really interesting is that, when you're trying to talk to the legal departments, do you, hey, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, do you want to be in this mall? And they read that script. They're like, I don't want to talk to you. No way. Like, there's just no one would touch us. And so we had to build a pretty much totally fictional mall. And we found in the northern, one of the northern boroughs of the city, Toronto here, we found a 1980s mall that had been bought by a condo corporation. And the condo corporation was about to tear it down and only preserve part of it. And then replace most of the mall with these two giant towers. And we paid them a chunk of change to hold off for 6 months while we basically rebuilt that 80s mall. And we used every storefront. It was basically empty, but it had a working escalator, still had a fountain, still had an elevator and a parking garage, all the things we needed. And so we built all the fake stores. I mean, of course, we called the coffee shop Hallowed Grounds. We based it off Starbucks, and we weren't allowed to do. And I mean, there's a lot of, and we had a lot of zombies. And I'll say last thing, we did an amazing scene in the basement. There's an incredible scene with Ving Rhames and the team coming out of the elevator into a parking garage, and they're basically lighting the garage with flashlights taped to guns, and they're looking, and they're trying to make a break for it. We had a guy who was an amputee who was hired to have a bunch of spindly, rotting legs attached to him, and he was rigged into the ceiling so that he could pull himself along one of the sprinkler pipes as that's a zombie. What he looked like. And we were in the middle of like pushing him along that rail and him sort of biting one of the guys as we found out that the giant blackout of 2004 had just happened. And we didn't really know what was going on because we have a generator. Like, we're the film industry. We're completely independent. We can function in a field and not know what's going on. We have all our own food. We have a small police force defending us. All this stuff. It's incredible, right? And so all of a sudden, we emerge from this parking garage with like 35 zombies out onto this parking lot where none of the traffic lights are working, and the zombies are just having a coffee break. And these guys, this is Greg Nicotero, man. He's one of the best zombie makeup artists in the world. He had 4 different stations set up for different levels of decay, number 4 being the most horrendous. And that's where we were getting amputees so that we could attach really. And these guys are just hanging out, having coffee, smoking on picnic tables, because we didn't know how long the blackout was going to last. And people driving by, it's just like, you just see these nervous people like, I don't want to look at what's going on. Just driving past us, we're all like waving, hi, how you doing? You had nothing to see here.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Did they even know like a movie was being filmed there, or did they say
no?
Wow.
I mean, it's kind of this big. It's all parking lot, right? It's a typical '80s mall. It's been left. Nobody's going there anymore. It's like it's so much parking lot you can barely see the mall. It's down there in the distance, the sea of concrete, and then all of a sudden it's filled with movie trucks. They just look like trucks. You don't really tell. Like, we don't have any pylons or lying around any of the cones, any of the street cones. It's all kind of in our territory. So it just didn't look like a film set. So what are these highly realistic looking undead people doing, lining the streets, and all the power's out and the radio's off and nobody's cell phone's working? It was a fun day. It took me
That's
11
amazing.
hours to get home.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. So let's talk about one of your other movies too. I saw you
Sure,
were
sure.
you were involved with the Total Recall reboot.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. Yeah, that was really
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Uh,
What was your part to this?
I just actually came in for a very small amount of
Oh, okay.
VFX holographic renders and builds, really for the memory room, the sort of
Mhm.
the original memory where they plant the memories inside. So we have this huge sort of where Colin Farrell sort of leans back in the chair and it has these the various options being played out to him. And so it was my job to build this entire futuristic operating system and
Mhm.
tons and tons of layers or stacked holographic screens basically in
Mhm.
which they could pull out like little tabs and and then show to him and then load into this other machine where he would actually be sucked into the machine, of course. And this is what Philip K. Dick's short story and what
Mhm.
the original movie tried to do. It's the moment where you wonder if it's now actually the fantasy or is he living this
Yeah.
thing? And
Yeah.
so that's sort of this pinnacle moment. There was some stuff in I mean the movie changed a lot. We
Mhm.
were changed to New Asia, I think it was. Like it
You mean
was
changed from the original or changed
yeah,
from?
no, no,
Oh.
no, from the original shooting schedule that we
Oh.
had,
Oh. Okay.
where they wanted to go from because going to England through to Australia to New Asia. A lot of stuff changed. It was really Patrick Tatopoulos is the production designer, is brilliant.
Mhm.
The entire team on there, the concept artists,
Mhm.
design team, graphics team were just extraordinary. One of the first times I was experiencing sort of the 150 million plus budget films where I was meeting people who I call the lifers,
Yeah.
the guys who travel with the film projects. They don't go home anymore. They haven't been. They got a Ford F-150 in the driveway in LA, and they haven't seen it in 15 years because
Oh my
film
goodness.
after film after film. And there was an extraordinary other sort of subculture of extreme professionals that I had never met before.
Mhm.
And Total Recall was one of my earlier experiences with them. Dawn of the Dead, definitely touching on that, and
Yeah.
Element or many other films I worked on that were sort of larger budgets, but that's the first sort of high budget, design intense sci-fi film.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the transition from big budget movies to TV shows, and I saw one of your early credits was a TV series that I loved a lot, especially as a geneticist, Orphan Black.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. So,
That
what
was
were
a
your
brave.
pieces to
That was a
that? I
very
would
brave
love
show.
to.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Tatiana Maslany. Man, they asked a lot of her.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. She was playing what 10 different roles. I mean, five sort of regularly, but then sporadically others. It
The
was
woman is a
amazing.
machine. She's just phenomenal. She's one of the best
Amazing.
actors in the business. She's really something, and it just gave 250%.
Yeah.
If that.
Yeah. Literally in this case.
That was an interesting story because it was really kind of a BBC US co-pro idea at first, I think, and I
Mhm.
remember that a lot of the there was a number of different resident geneticists who were on tap to offer up advice about PCR reactions and
Oh yeah.
charts and
That was
you know
clear from the dialogue that like, oh,
yeah,
they
I
clearly
wasn't trying to get
consulted
it
on this
right. Like
one.
I didn't know if they were going to focus on it, and I mean, I only people don't always realize I don't have that much time.
Yeah.
Like I can do all the research I want, but I only have like 13 frames
Yeah.
to tell some very complicated thing in a
Yeah.
time because it's really about the actors and of course TV is all this. It's all the
Yeah.
facial expression with a little screen glowing in the background. So I
Mhm.
was trying to find a way to truncate or simplify, help. And also, I've always had one foot in the sciences. Like, I mean, I'm one of those artists who grew up with a very close best friend who is basically an autistic scientist who's basically a full geneticist now.
Oh wow.
And he would do these lovely drawings where he would not be able to drop a single detail. He's a total scientist. He covered every detail with equal strength.
Yeah.
And so he would do a drawing of an arboretum, and he did every leaf, every plot. He didn't understand the emotion, the metaphor, or the poetry of a thing. And so I think I brought that to him. I helped him recognize that the aesthetic, the poetry, the a little bit of a little bit of meaning to raw data.
So were there specific Were there specific things that you were doing then with Orphan Black with regard to genetics, or were your pieces different in that regard?
We had a lot of discussion where we'd like to show various scenes where they're showing the differentiation in the clones,
Okay.
where they come from, and I would show them sort of real diagrams that were not as sexy as a rotating helix. I tried to sort of explain to them that there's literally, billions, thousands of latent introns and proteins being expressed, and try to talk in terms like that where they kind of glaze over. They understood a lot of it and understood some of it better than I did at times, but wanting to be able to sort of translate it visually. It's interesting. It's an interesting challenge because you don't always have visually literate people in the film industry who've come up with an incredible plot, a great story. They're very good at understanding what the acting's requirements are and how the pace of it's going to go and the arcs and the reveals. But really, to be honest, it is a visual medium in the end, and that having one of us translate that, we need to have these weird multiple disciplinary minds that can step into that world and recognize what they're doing. But also try to say, okay, I got to truncate what you said into something visually digestible by an audience. But also not detract from the actor. I've been accused of stealing the show a few times. That are pretty graphics, so kind of over the top. They're like, dude, you got to take this down. It's like the actor's just like standing next to your fountain. That is the highest compliment.
That's a great.
For me, that's a win, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, you mentioned another show too. Let's hop over to that. You mentioned The Expanse earlier, so tell us a little bit about that. And if you have any images you'd like to show from The Expanse too, feel free.
Oh yeah, I have some. Yeah. I haven't. I'm not sharing my screen. I'm not sharing my screen. Oh yeah, The Expanse. I don't have anything collected here. I think we have reels. Give me 1 second here.
Sure.
The Expanse was really interesting because it was one of the first times I'd ever got into a sci-fi TV series that was really set in space. That was really fully in space with as much. Oh, there's some stuff in my reel here. I think that we did.
Look at that. Oh wait, is that Discovery?
It's Discovery, but it goes to Spider-Man. Here we go with Expanse. Cool. So Expanse, we do things like a lot of those screens in the background right there are really complicated builds that are really of Earth's planetary defense systems, trying to figure out how to create various nations within the solar system. And it's very different from Star Trek. It's deeply rooted in the limitations of space. It doesn't. It's a bit dark, I gotta say. It doesn't have that much optimism. It really shows that we're sort of surviving against our worst possible instincts, and there are some extraordinary sort of hero characters that stand out in there. But they're very cognizant of gravity, of atmosphere, of living in highly restrictive environments. Ceres and the moon was really something. I developed an entire subway system. I mean, I can always post these to you later. I developed an entire subway system and subway system map for the Expanse. This is their airlock, I think, where they're making love, so they turn the camera off.
Oh yeah.
This is Eros. This is the sort of the moon, one of the asteroid sort of Eros, where I'm just showing these really cool interfaces where you could scan the entire surface of it, and you're scanning deeper inside to see, we're trying to penetrate it with radar because we're trying to figure out who's left alive actually in this particular scene.
Do you mind leaving this up for a second? So on that one you're showing us right now, can you tell folks who are watching what's your process of getting from concept to that right there? Like what are your steps?
There's a bunch of things. I mean, I took a look at a lot of NASA's interfaces and any kind of proprietary software programs, scientific programs that are done for analysis, and tried to strip my design down to be quite it's not as aesthetic as it's not over the top and super design. Like when you look at something like Picard or Next Generation, it's the LCARs are very, very stylized. It's not actually really even an operating system. It's more of a pattern and a shape system. While here is trying to be deeply practical and sort of have all the sort of tabs at the top and the bottom. I have sort of a top and bottom, very much like Windows, like a Windows system almost. And so I would sort of build that as I would sort of start off as wanting to have a functional operating system. And this is the Martian version of that. It's all in red. So we always have a sort of a reddish color scheme because it's on the Rossi or the Rocinante, which is a Martian ship that they took over. And so everything is this is a bit of a color scheme. All the Earth ones are kind of bluey, green, teal. Everything in the Martian world is reddish,
red based,
brown. And the rest of the belters are in a very eclectic mess because they've cobbled together what they can. And so there's that aesthetic as well. And then I sort of want to do a layout which is not just the 3D model. I found that this was the best angle so that I could show a scan happening, yet not fill the entire screen, so we can have some kind of readouts on the right here where we have Joule's object like the force, also the antenna, sort of a collection of data being put up as points that could be swept away. And then finally on the left here we have basically a infrared heat chart, or sort of like an infrared to ultraviolet, like a FLIR camera, because that's what we're doing is we're scanning that moon here, and it's all blue, it's all cold. We have almost no life signs as we're and of course all the humans actually live at the bottom here. And I think it's because Eros has been spun, I think is the idea, and so it has gravity. Well, if the gravity is centrifugal.
I see.
They actually stand on the inside of the surface.
I see.
Of the moon.
Very interesting. Yeah, and I remember that sort of thing. I remember them doing that with some of their spaceships as well. That's cool.
That was the idea.
Yeah. Okay.
And I ended up getting I built a little quick 3D model off of it and used a NASA provided texture, so it's actually the real Eros.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Here's a Tycho station. This is their main command center. And we were teasing these guys, going, I walked into the set for the first time. I was like, you didn't even build a set. You just built a playback holder, just a graphic screen holder. It's just like it's all motion, the entire room. It's like, and the thing is that I can't cheat and double up any of my content on any of the screens.
Oh no! So you have to create something for every single screen.
Yeah, because they're all visible in this shot, and they're all visible from this command room up in the top right corner. You can see them all. So and this was a simulation of a whole bunch of nukes leaving Earth and coming towards Rocinante, going straight towards Eros in that situation. It's just beautiful. It's a really gorgeous set, played really well, and these are all playing live. I made all these animations before they shot. They didn't have to place any screens.
Yeah, but for the actors though, they're just looking at blank screens. They're not actually.
No, they're looking at this is what the actors are seeing.
Oh, they're seeing that like that. Oh wow.
Real seeing. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Like here we're not. This is we had to track this in. They're holding a piece of plexi.
Yeah.
And so we're adding stuff. We're doing a lot of different. Here's the Total Recall I was just talking about earlier.
Oh yeah.
These are all the memory options that are stacking in those plates right there.
Yeah.
Will come out, and then he tips one up and chooses one for him. This is sort of one of the primary goals of this, was to sort of build this stack, because it actually took quite a few weeks to.
I can imagine.
Build up this thing.
Very cool. Well, we should make sure to spend a good amount of time on Trek. So let's shift.
Get lost in a bunch of many other movies.
Yeah, no, this is great though. This is great. Actually, I'm gonna. Well, actually, let's just leave the share up there. Do you have something good from? I don't know. Do you want to start with Runaway, the short trek?
Oh, Runaway. Yeah, I don't know if I have any. I have some short trek stuff. Okay. Runaway. Wow. Yeah.
It's going back.
Oh my God. Yeah,
this was the episode, if I remember correctly, is the one with the alien who I can't remember what her name was. She showed up later than the second season, or at the end of second season of Discovery.
She's a princess.
Yeah, exactly. And she had created a device that could like recrystallize dilithium, and Tilly had found her hiding on the ship, and then talked her into going back.
What do we have here? So we've got Calypso Mud. Just going through my archives here. Star Trek for Alcor. Okay, that's Mud's ship.
Oh, you have Harry Mudd's ship. Wow.
So Q&A, Trouble, Critters, Children of Mars, Astronaut. What?
Oh, you can do one of the other short treks. That was just the first one that came to mind. If you want to pick like
Runaway had very little for us. It was really just doing the holographic interface on the glass of one of the worker bees.
Oh, okay.
You first meet her; she's hiding in a container.
That's right, she was
in the shuttle bay.
Do you want to pull up the Harry Mudd thing? You just mentioned that one.
Oh yeah, Harry Mudd. Oh boy, he was lots of fun. Mudd's ship. What do we have here? Because I'm looking at these work in progress files that we have that might be fun and interesting.
Yeah. It's fine. I mean, whatever you think would be exciting to see. It doesn't have to be.
I'm just trying to give you a view of this.
Yeah.
So we tried to build a Tellarite because Mudd's on a Tellarite ship.
Yeah.
Here, so he had this Tellarite look. These are these sort of ultra wide screens that we built for him.
Oh.
On his Tellarite ship, and I think we built them all in the Tellarite language that was developed by actually Michael Lakuta back in the day. Actually, it was no, he did it as well. He updated it for next gen. And
wow.
This, and so these are sort of all the various screens.
So this was on display inside the ship
inside his Tellarite ship. Yeah, before he. What else are these the same ones? Yeah, they are. And then. Had like a little captain's chair graphic. So these little guys are just in the console, the captain's chair.
Yeah. So what's your process for something like that captain's chair design? I mean, that's obviously not
we
like
designed that thing pretty much in English first.
Okay.
And then switch it out, translate it, and when we translate it, we sort of look at it, go the layout, realize that this is a much more of a symbol-based language rather than a phonetic-based one. So it's more like sort of Chinese or Japanese. More like Chinese, not Japanese, and so sort of start to compress and condense parts of it and sort of change the layout. Because you get a lot of wonderful fans who will reverse engineer these things once they
totally.
And so we try to make sure that the English makes sense when they get back to it.
It's interesting you're anticipating that already from the very beginning, that fans are going to reverse engineer it.
It's Star Trek, man. I mean, people want to find our mistakes as much as our successes.
I saw something about an agonizer in there as you were scrolling.
In the Tellarite ship there, the agonizer. Yeah, this was on the agonizer.
Oh, it's just more script on the agonizer.
I see. Yeah, it was actually on a console because he turns it up, the dial, because he's been put in an agonizer.
Got it. Okay. Do you have other things from Short Treks that'd be fun?
Oh, the Klingon ship that we had that he was on.
Look at that.
Various Klingon layouts. All the different because these are all the various ships that are in, I think, this. I don't know if we actually show the Klingon bridge in that Short Trek. It didn't make it in necessarily.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Mud ship, the Festoon. Oh yeah, we had a joke. We have a little animated Mud. I think we had him as an emoji that he keeps popping up.
Yeah.
That's amazing. The most interesting of all the shorts is Calypso.
Oh, okay.
And Calypso was written by Michael Chabon, who's a fantastic sci-fi writer.
Yeah, this was one in the far future.
This was in the very far future. It's still sort of affecting Discovery. It's also where Picard kind of came, like the whole Picard series actually came from a short trek that we were going to do, where we were going to actually have Picard sort of in retirement, sort of reminiscing and going back and taking
the
Academy. And I think it really blossomed into becoming it wanted to be its own series, and Chabon was really sort of instrumental in sort of writing great pieces for that. And Calypso was tremendous fun. I remember also we first discover Book, or I think he's got a different name then. I don't know if it's Book, but he's in this ship where we scan him and find him, and then sort of beam him aboard. From this escape pod, and he ends up in Discovery. I remember doing sort of a galactic map, trying to find out where Alcor. I think it's
wow,
Alcor, the Alcor system. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that graphic right there that you just showed is pretty epic, showing the whole Milky Way and then zooming in on one spot.
Such a thing, yeah. Just trying to
my gosh,
play through it, and
so many people are going to want this image right here.
Well, I've fallen in love very much with stellar cartography, and the best example of it being in Star Trek Generations, where Data and Picard go and stand in a newly invented room that we've never seen in the next gen on board the Enterprise D, and they're standing in very similar to what like Cerebrum was in the X-Men, which is like a platform with a circular sort of ending, top with a little railing, and a small console, and really you're dealing with a holographic representation of the universe, which to me was like that took my breath away. That is a dream that you could basically zoom in
Yeah.
3D space to wherever you wanted.
So with this image you just showed us, like,
Yeah.
is it possible to zoom in on other places, or is everything else just like
Oh
you
no,
zoomed in? It's just
yeah, I
not
could,
high.
I could when I tell the camera
But
to
it
go
wouldn't be
there.
as high res as what you just did, for example.
Oh yeah, it would, but it would. But the thing is that I have this as it's called a volumetric galaxy. It's the Milky Way. It has all the noble gases and
Yeah.
sort of all the sort of dark occluding gases and
Hmm.
all the star systems are just existing as little points of light.
Hmm.
And I have a camera that exists in 3D space, and I am rotating the camera, not the galaxy,
Oh,
and I'm spinning the camera around one of the spiral arms and then going down through it. But it took
okay.
like 2 days maybe to finish running.
So it is actually the whole galaxy. In theory, like every star is in there. You can zoom in on some other spot.
Yeah, I mean it's not 100% accurate. I mean
Yeah, yeah,
it's a bunch of particle generators that have generated.
yeah.
I haven't got Sagittarius A star B star here in the middle with the giant black hole, and we didn't even really know it
Yeah.
quite at the time. But I
Yeah.
definitely have a very dense collection of stars in there. It's so dense
Wow.
it's actually giving off light on its own. It's glowing. And so I'm grabbing the camera and I'm moving that camera through this space.
Yeah.
So what happens is you see the particle system mixing with the cloud system
Yeah.
here, and then I'm passing through a nebula right here,
Okay.
which gives me my so you can see all my star systems,
Hmm.
all the stars coming by,
Hmm.
and then I have a nebula zoom in right here to cheat my way out of that.
I see.
And so that nebula is actually this one in the left corner here, but it's being zoomed in on.
Hmm.
So I can pass through that just because I'm trying to jump through time a little bit. I'm trying to cheat my
Yeah.
way through. Like I only have so many seconds to show this screen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And flow through this and basically get to a more detailed neighborhood. And I'll
Wow.
stop and pull a planet out of a system.
Wow. That is so cool. I love that.
Oh, it's fun. And this is a preview of the kind of stuff we've been doing, especially in season 5, which I'll talk about at the end of this.
Oh, yeah. No spoilers, of course, though.
No, nothing like that. Yeah, no, something really special.
That was amazingly cool. Do you have other things from short treks, or you want to move to like Strange New Worlds? I think we save Discovery for last.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you want to move to Strange New Worlds?
Yeah, let's do that.
There's a lot of short trek stuff, but yeah, so Strange New Worlds, wow. Fun project. So, after having Alex Kurtzman come up and take over season 2,
Hmm.
there's not been one Star Trek series that has been developed without its stress.
Hmm.
They are much more complicated to do than probably any other kind of TV series, mostly.
Hmm.
I'm sure there are a few others, but there are few series that have 500, 700, now 800 plus, almost pushing 900 episodes of canon to deal with. And they're difficult. I mean, the bridges are 360-degree sets.
Hmm.
You have, huge hallway systems. You have to have a sick bay, transporter room, shuttle bay. Oh, but a shuttle in the shuttle bay. And once you finish building the standing sets, you got to go and have all the worlds, all the strange new worlds, right? And so every single one of them was a challenge. And Alex Kurtzman came up here to take over season 2 after all the sort of experimentation of season 1 to figure out kind of where Trek was now after the end of Enterprise, and JJ's movie really doing quite well, rebooting it. There was this idea to kind of ignore a lot of the stuff from before and reboot it a lot. And then there was a push by the other half of the production to stay
true to the classics.
close to canon. Yeah. And so by the time season 2 came around, we ran in the Enterprise. We had Anson Mount come along, who was a particularly good find. And what most of my female friends refer to as Hot Spock showed up.
Yeah, Ethan Peck.
Ethan Peck showed up, and he's just a charmer. He's just and Rebecca Stamos, Rebecca Romaine, not Stamos. I'm sorry, I'm a child of the '90s. Showed up, and the three of them and their chemistry was really something special.
Totally.
And so I think they kind of eclipsed what we were doing on Discovery in some senses, and that Pike's showed that a charismatic leader that was a little bit less of a rebel, because Burnham breaks every rule even more than Kirk.
Yeah. I'm going to stop you sharing for just a second while we're talking here. Now. There we go. Yeah.
And it got to the point where it seemed that Pike resonated with people, with at least
Yeah.
a large swath of the fans.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were preparing Section 31. We were getting ready for a Section 31 series. We really had some Michelle Yeoh prep for that, building a whole other world. And it really seemed that we did a couple of Pike short treks, one Pike short trek. And the audience sort of demand for him was so strong that Strange New Worlds came along. So basically the entire production team on Section 31 stopped doing that, moved over to Pike. We took the Enterprise out of mothballs from the end of Discovery Season 2 and upgraded that one and really upgraded it and built the rest of the sets. And the production team on there has been fantastic. You have to know that we built that thing in the very, very middle of COVID-19, the height of the pandemic. We could barely get a crew. We got people were sick all the time. We had to shut down all the time. Both Discovery and Strange New Worlds were pumping along in the middle of these days. It was just incredible. And we could only have like 3 painters on and then opposite corners of the room. They couldn't come near each other. It just so we formed under extreme duress. And got to day 1 of shooting with like nothing left of us.
Wow.
And it was really quite special to see Pike get on the bridge, and really we're about to go to see Planet Kylie. It was really special. It was a special
awesome
level of success, and it was interesting that we felt this. It doesn't matter how much money, preparation, and good writing you have. If your character actors don't have chemistry with each other, you're never gonna make a memorable. You just kind of knew this one rocked from the moment they got. It was just like, wow, this combination works. I mean, and they've had a lot of good crews. Like Discovery's crew's fine. This Deep Space Nine's great. Even Enterprise, as much people complain, it's a great crew. There's a lot of chemistry and camaraderie there. Voyager, all of them. Deep Space Nine, one of my favorites, and Next Gen, which is I think unbeatable. The Next Gens, especially seasons 3, 4, 5, you can't really ever touch those, sort of the peak of it all. And you got the most professional, most together crew you ever have. It feels like Strange New Worlds has kind of slightly touched that again for the first time in many, many years. There's a
great crew.
And there's a sense of a captain that gets out of the way and lets the solutions come. And there's philosophy, because I look on Star Trek as a philosophical show. I look on Star Wars as a mythological show.
No, I agree with
Star
that.
Wars, the Star Wars world is really force and magic and whatever in a ancient galactic sort of crumbling empire type 2. Right, civilization. And Star Trek is a direct linear philosophy from our time now to that time in the future. It's a philosophical show, and it really has a naval military hierarchy tradition and exploration. And Strange New Worlds was this wonderful opportunity to sort of relive that. And I mean, there's also there's a point where you can't really retrofit TOS, to be honest. I mean, the fans will complain all they want.
Of course. No, you're right.
Sorry, but I have to start at the motion picture. I cannot start with the 1960s.
I mean, it would look ridiculous if you did.
Story-wise, it's pretty good story-wise, but there's even major. I mean, there are contradictions. It only went 3 seasons. They had no idea it would become a series. They say things that Romulans don't have warp drive. Like, really, and people just can't let go of certain. It's like, listen, you know what? You can gatekeep all you want. As far as I'm concerned, if I'm going to do a series right now, and we're going to completely present sort of a new /old /period piece, I have to use the motion pictures TOS as the best possible guide for an aesthetic that we're working towards. I know that people would love to see us end up with the Enterprise that is in the original series.
It'd be funny with all the little switches and buttons.
It's totally fun, and then we try to mix the two together. There's an analog feel. It's interesting to come out of something so advanced as Discovery. Discovery is like a big budget experimental lab where they really do take the risks that others are afraid to do. And so they'll be heavily criticized. I'm sure there's going to be these days in the future where classic Discovery, man, no one would do that now.
Oh, man.
It'll happen. But whatever. It's just once you leave an experimental thing like the 32nd century where we're doing nothing but holograms and programmable matter. I'm sitting on the bridge of the Enterprise and I'm seeing that they can't have any holograms. Everything's going to be sort of a 2D graphic. And I'm telling the story basically the way we used to in the sort of the mid 80s all the way to the end of 2000. era. It's a really fun and exciting challenge. Strangely, of course, I can't touch LCARs. I can't touch
Oh yeah.
sort of design language because I've been sort of prevented time-wise because I've been shoved on either side of it, no matter what. And so I've hinted at it because there's proto LCARs, and that's really what Next Strange New Worlds really is it's all proto LCARs, it's all pre, and then of course 900 years in the future, I mean, it's programmable matter, 3D objects. It's not going to work. It has to be something else.
Well, since we're talking about Discovery, why don't we go ahead and go into that? And this is actually where you and I got to meet for the first time through Discovery. So let's talk a little bit about the hydrocarbons.
Oh yeah, it's really something. Well, you guys, you guys spent a lot of time figuring out a very complicated thing that was dropped on me like a bomb later.
I'm sorry.
It was totally fun, and I appreciate and love you guys for what you did, which you and Michelle and your team, Dr. Aaron, the rest of the team, all sort of figuring out really a truly alien species.
Yeah. Do you want to show us some pictures from that?
Oh yeah, it was a challenge that I put together a little thing for you specifically for this.
Wonderful.
Particularly for hydrocarbons, so the development process was particularly complicated. You were part of this with us, and so we were really trying to work out how the 10C would have these light patterns that would sort of come across their translucent foreheads, if you could even call them that, forehead. And so I was just trying to develop a firefly movement, bioluminescence that was happening there, and then we're trying to sort of figure out how a hydrocarbon supermolecule would form from all the various compounds, and these compounds would be representing the various emotional states.
I remember one of the conversations on this one was that they had to be complex supermolecules because
I know these weren't complex enough. I remember these are still too simplistic, right? Because they're still having like butane, because there's all the parts of the standard actual real hydrocarbons which I was using. And then we have sort of also we had a intercut with Zora being able to sort of project light patterns back to the 10C. So we're trying to figure out how we can ingest language and then sort of reply.
How did you create what's on the screen right now?
This is a concept artist, Henry Fong, who's a fantastic, wonderful. I've worked with him for years, and he created this concept. He created this concept of what, because there's already a scene where we know that Zora is going to radiate back a light pattern from Michelle's script to the 10C, and the only way we're going to ever get a sense of scale is to look out the back of the shuttle bay at one of the 10C, and of course have one of the nacelles in view for scale. So he created all of that. Then I just dropped a little hollow Zora in there, and then there's light pattern here, and then just tried to animate that and then fade this in. I just wanted to see it sort of, this is what's really this is the main concern, sort of it in situ, so it might not show up. Like I wanted to talk to the team about how much we can visually show, because this is a very busy scene. There's a lot going on here. So then a little later, we started working out more of the details of how would the hydrocarbons go from a 2D light source into 3D points of space, which of course which would eventually form a molecular map, a molecular compound, and of course becoming a supra molecule. And so then there was this whole thing about it being compared against one of the hydrocarbon supermolecules.
The basically having to rotate it
on there, and then rotates it on, and we find that after doing a slight rotation right here, it lines up exactly.
That's amazing.
This was like, okay, this is the best way I can tell this story visually, is that have that subtle lineup and show. So these are like the presentation boards that you were an advisor on, that we worked on hard to get Michelle to see.
I remember seeing these.
Work through these. And try to show the various hydrocarbon compounds and how they all sort of existed within the main sort of larger piece that we would analyze, and started to assign letters to it, so that we could basically derive a type of Linkos language off of it. Basically try to turn, like, how do you turn hydrocarbons into written words? You guys gave us the system to do that. So this is me sort of building that system visually to try to sort of explain this story.
Mhm.
and find out, how we can arrive at a number.
Yeah.
Or
Credit credit to Sherry Wells Jensen and Douglas Fakoch for that piece.
this was really something very
Yeah.
special.
Yeah.
So this is the builds that
Yeah.
so then you get into the fictional world, you can't really do that. So what I had to do is find a way to holographically make Zora show up.
Mhm.
Zora starts recording the light patterns that's in her ring, and the light patterns are forming a 3D object.
Mhm.
And then the 3D object is dragged over onto the supermolecule and rotated and lined up.
Wow.
And so there is what is actually that was 21 seconds of animation, but it was actually an extremely long process to figure out.
I'm sure.
Like I thought, what would be really good to tell the story is that if Zora has one of the rings that she has comes off of her and stretches over here, so she's like literally pulling the 3D off of the 2D.
Yeah.
As she has that sitting there.
That's a brilliant way of doing it.
Well, then you pull up the molecule that you want to compare it against and drag that over and place it on there, and then I can use the ring to show it rotating and lining up.
Wow.
And I think I have a secondary. Is that just a secondary view of it? I think it's just a different viewpoint of it. Yeah, where you can see the lights happening.
Yeah.
A lot of this was built in reverse. I had to basically build the super molecule and pull the whole apart, and then so it animates and miraculously it lines up.
That makes sense.
So in the end, I think I have only my demo right here, which is Roberto. And seeing it, it's not the best viewing vehicle to tell that story, but
Now, if I move the light map over the molecule,
and then I think in the next cut, she rotates. These aren't the finished shots. These are our holo concepts that we provide.
Yeah.
They're usually pretty close to finished. Like they're 75% there. It's not proper lighting or texture or grain, but color temperature and all that, but color timing, all the rest of it. But it's still definitely enough for VFX to know exactly what we're asking them to do. We'll provide them the whole 3D animated piece, and then they can track it into the shot for the final. We also had some fun where is this the one? Oh yes. So also when we first encountered the 10C, I really wanted to show the beautiful design that they'd done for it. And so I wanted Hiral to be able to have a hologram of it and just have a hint of its internal organs.
Oh wow.
And Michelle loved it, the whole team loved it, but they felt that this was revealing too much before we were going to see the actual one. And so this is a wasted, gorgeous holo, but this is the film industry.
Yeah.
The story is king, not my aesthetic designs or dreams.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Look at that.
It's a really beautiful holo. It would have been fun to show. Like we have all their internal organs and all that.
Yeah.
So much fun to.
Is there a way to? I mean, I don't know if that's the kind of thing you're even allowed to do. Are you allowed to share those things after the fact, like on socials or something like that? Or
this is on my Twitter feed.
Oh, so this 3D one is. Wow.
Oh yeah, you'll find all these on my Twitter feed.
Wow.
I give up the game, but only after it's really been aired.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is all behind the scenes fun stuff. Yeah, it's great.
Very cool.
Now, so they know. So it's like, hey, we really wanted to show you this, and I think it's worth seeing. And
yeah.
People really do love it. And so the other thing also is like, Saru really had this interesting holo communicator when he was talking to the 10C. So we have all of the equations being worked out.
Oh yeah.
And sort of the combinations to create sadness. What is the general composition of our atmosphere? What is a hydrocarbon that indicates terror? It was just a lot of fun, and we created this whole little. This is just me doing something called a turntable. So whenever we create a 3D object, we tend to show it to you tracked into the shot. We also show you a 3D turntable here because it's the most informative way to show the whole 3D build, what's involved in there. And this is me taking Discovery's standard interface and wrapping it into a tapered kind of ring at the bottom, creating a hexagon. Was it a hexagon? It's a hexagon. Around the edge there, but making it very translucent. I want it to be mostly out of the way. Mainly because Saru is standing behind this, so I don't want to occlude too much of his face with it. So I have a real challenge that a lot of my Discovery holos are more translucent than they really want to be in a practical sense, because I need you to see through them and see the actors.
Mhm.
And a lot of that is the difficulty of that. A lot of shooting crew are filming things that don't exist yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the subtlety of the blocking is not. I mean, it works really well with our transparent screens on the Discovery Bridge, because
Mhm.
we found those for real. Those are real transparent screens. We got them from
Oh.
found them. That's a practical thing. So you can get really subtle layouts where there's times where we had Burnham or Reese or even the Arium, all the major sort of characters where you have like foreshadowing flickering on the screen and their eyes still visible, and like you can do really subtle layouts because they can see the holographic stuff with the actor in real time. Now here, these are all put in post, and so you're trying to sort of figure out a way to cheat your way around what's already been done. I call it post rationalization.
That's a good term for it.
We do a lot of, and it's pretty intense. And in Discovery, for season 3 and 4 and now in 5, we gave up a lot of the props and we moved into. Am I going too far now? Are we over time?
No, we're good.
Okay, we're good. Where we gave up a lot of the stuff to programmable matter, so we no longer have a tricorder. We no longer carry. It's all in the badge, right? We don't have a tricorder. We don't have a communicator, and we actually don't even have a phaser. They can all form with a hand gesture. And so I started having a lot of fun with like Book's ship when we first were exposed to his ship, where I'm moving very far from interface design. These are like ergonomic shapes. I'm doing ergonomic design. I'm doing basically sculpture.
I love this.
Because I'm trying to build a haptic, tactile environment where you barely have to see. So the way that I'm trying to advance UI design in the 32nd century, which is that I want it to be almost all symbol based, so that it serves a wide variety of species without needing to know Federation standard as a written language. They can speak it, but not, and that you could basically feel your way through these hollows, that there's a hierarchy of shape and height coming out of your console, so that it may sit flat, so it's still a 2D console that has all the new normal interactivity that we'd have, but with certain hand gestures you can extrude and pull all of that up into a 3D object, and then it has haptic feedback. It can be as solid as a real object. It can be gooey, it can have viscosity, whatever it wants.
Wow.
And actually, so when you have that given to you as your parameter, it changes the rules quite a bit from all the other Star Trek series.
Yeah, totally. It's a great point.
So I'm sort of designing things in a way that Star Trek will take a long time before it really there's any other part of it catches up to this. It's not where they're at.
Yeah.
They're decidedly sort of non-hologram in Strange New Worlds. They're very minimal hologram in Picard. And Picard, that was sort of our team that left Discovery and moved back in California. Todd Chernowski is wonderful, the art director who became production designer, who was on season 1 of Picard. His sort of idea was really that it would be a lot of holograms, but it would always show the emitter. You'd always see where the hologram was emitting from. You had a lot of LCARs. It was still like sort of related to next gen, but advanced. And so when we got into the 32nd century, it needed to be programmable matter, and it could come from fucking anywhere.
Yeah.
You could be standing inside the galaxy, which happens sometimes. And so you can see that, Burnham's she's like waving her hand over these programmable matter consoles that would basically form from various hand gestures. This idea was that I did the entire galactic map. And I wanted to be able to stand there and then just use hand gestures to zoom right down to a planet's surface and back out. Wow. So you had the sort of the infinite access of a Type 2 civilization that could handle the whole galaxy. And with that kind of fun, we have like, here is a map I want to show you. So here in the very middle is Earth, Sector 1.
Oh yeah.
8 and 4 and 6. And what we've been building this map for a very long time. So this is a 2D map. And what we have here is
wow,
a pretty
the whole galaxy basically.
At least as much as we can do. And I mean, I've had to cheat a lot of things. The series don't always work. The sector grids aren't always the right size. The amount of light years the galaxy is across is all a bit of a mess throughout the series. I've got a whole Borg transwarp conduit system over there.
I'm gonna stop your sharing for just a second here. Wow. That's amazing. So I think Larry Nemechek has a book called Stellar Cartography that probably has pieces of this,
I've
but
worked
this
with him quite a bit
I figured.
on this map. I've worked with a lot of people on this map.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Mandel, Mike Lakuta, and Larry Nemechek.
Mhm.
I've interviewed with him about it and gone
Mhm.
through it. I've tried my best to truncate and add as much as I can, put all their systems in there, and also kind of ignore. There's some stuff that's really far out of the galaxy, which is
Yeah.
like put that on the map. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then finally, dude, you have to see this. I gotta put this
Sure.
share back on.
So we'll probably have to stop right after this. We're just about out of time. But yeah,
Okay.
please do share.
Is this?
Oh my goodness.
So I have now built the entire Star Trek galaxy as a 3D model.
Wow. Is this something that people could like get, or is this? Or is it just
I don't know. That's got to be CBS's idea.
Got it. Fair enough.
Because we've been building this. It's taken us almost 3 years to get to this point, but we have a lot of scenes coming up in season 5 where you'll see people like literally standing inside this map.
Wow.
With the sector grids. But anyway, I just wanted you to see that.
Yeah, thank you.
Quite a build, and it takes it's got everybody. There's a lot of people. Larry Nemechek's in there. Jeffrey Mandel's heavily in there. Mike Lakuta's heavily in there. Andrew Jarvis is in there. These are all my contemporaries, all people I love and dearly appreciate, and have helped me try to get to this. And I have, of course, the most advanced version of that map, so I've added a huge amount as well. And there's still these weird gaps, which I figure I would like to fill in, but I can't predict what the writers are going to do.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Well, thank you so much for this interview. This was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I could go with you for another hour. I have so many questions actually written down that we didn't even get to, but that was fantastic.
I'll happily answer them in text form if you want. I'm as much a nerd as any other, and I am one of the few people who work on the show who's actually a fan of the show. So
it was very clear when you were talking about the various series that you know the show backwards and forwards, and it's probably a piece of why you're so awesome at this work. So thank you for all you do. And to everybody who's watching, please continue watching the virtual TrekCon 4. Thanks for joining us.
So much fun. Thanks, Mohammed. You have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.